James Whittaker had always worn his army uniform with pride. As a decorated colonel, he represented everything honorable about serving his country. He often recalled the days spent in training, the camaraderie formed with fellow soldiers, and the sacrifices made for freedom. But now, standing in the courtroom, his heart raced as he faced an unimaginable accusation from his own brother, Daniel. "He's a fake veteran!" Daniel shouted, his voice echoing through the tense silence. Despite the charges thrown at him, James remained calm. He understood that anger would not help him now. He needed to keep his cool. With steady hands, he placed the folder on the judge's desk, knowing it contained vital evidence that would turn the tide in his favor. The murmur of disbelief swept through the courtroom as the judge prepared to examine its contents. Just moments later, as the judge began reviewing the documents inside the folder, he sensed something was amiss. Without hesitation, he ordered everyone to be quiet and closed the courtroom doors. The atmosphere shifted dramatically when military police entered, their presence sending shockwaves through those present. Years earlier, James had inherited a coastal home from their father, a gesture meant to signify trust and family unity. But instead of gratitude, it sparked a dispute that led Daniel and their mother to accuse him of fraud and stealing valor, a painful betrayal from those who should have supported him. Alone in his fight for justice, James worked tirelessly on his defense. Little did he know that help was on the way. His younger brother Mark had uncovered startling information that would change everything. The courtroom buzzed with tension, a palpable energy that felt almost electric. James Whittaker stood at the front, his heart steady despite the chaos swirling around him. The judge's gavel struck sharply, calling the room to order, yet whispers of doubt and betrayal lingered in the air like an unwanted fog. James could feel the weight of every gaze upon him, especially Daniel's, filled with accusation and disdain. With deliberate calmness, James approached the judge's desk and placed the folder down with a quiet confidence. He knew this moment was crucial. Inside that folder lay evidence he had meticulously gathered, proof that would challenge the lies aimed at his character. As he stepped back, the rustling of papers echoed softly, drawing everyone's attention to the contents as the judge began to sift through them. The silence became heavy, punctuated only by the sound of pages turning. Each second felt like an eternity, as James watched the judge's expression shift from curiosity to concern. The atmosphere thickened. It was a mixture of anticipation and fear, and James could sense a collective holding of breath. This was not just about him. It was about honor, truth, and the very essence of who he was. Suddenly, the judge's demeanor changed dramatically. His brow furrowed as he glanced up from the documents, an urgency in his voice as he ordered the courtroom doors closed. The tension escalated further when military police entered the room, their presence sending waves of shock and confusion through the audience. James stood firm, ready for whatever came next, knowing that the truth was finally within reach, and he was prepared to fight for it. The silence in the courtroom felt heavy, almost suffocating, as the judge's eyes scanned the contents of the folder that James had just placed on his desk. The stillness intensified, broken only by the soft rustling of paper. Each person in the room leaned forward, drawn in by a mix of curiosity and anxiety. James's heart pounded as he watched the judge's expression shift from curiosity to alarm. Moments passed, but it seemed like an eternity as he processed what he was reading. The judge suddenly straightened up, a grave look overtaking his previously neutral demeanor. He cleared his throat and glanced up at those gathered before him, the weight of authority evident in his voice as he commanded everyone to be silent. "This is serious," he declared sharply, a sense of urgency cutting through the courtroom tension. Without warning, he ordered for the doors to be closed and secured. The sound of the heavy door slamming shut echoed through the room, isolating them from the outside world and heightening everyone's sense of dread. At that moment, whispers surged through the crowd, an unspoken apprehension gripped each attendee as they realized that something extraordinary was unfolding. Then came a further shock. Military police entered promptly, their presence commanding attention and instilling fear among those who had come to witness what was supposed to be just another court case. Gasps filled the air as spectators exchanged worried glances, This was no ordinary accusation about stolen valor anymore. James remained steady at the front, his resolve stronger than ever as he understood that this evidence could not only vindicate him, but also expose deeper truths hidden within their family's conflict. In that charged atmosphere, with military police on alert, James prepared himself to confront both his past and whatever lay ahead with unwavering courage. Years before the courtroom drama unfolded, the coastal home inherited from their father stood as a symbol of both cherished memories and hidden resentments. For James Whittaker, it was a place filled with laughter, a retreat where summer days melted into warm nights filled with stories. Yet beneath its beautiful facade lay an undercurrent of family tension waiting to erupt. After their father's passing, James was shocked to learn that he was the sole beneficiary of the property. Daniel, his younger brother, had always felt entitled to their father's legacy, believing he deserved an equal share. Their mother echoed Daniel's sentiments, feeling a sense of betrayal rather than gratitude toward James for inheriting the home. This home had once been their family's sanctuary, now it became a battleground. The disputes began small, misunderstandings turned bitter as words were exchanged in anger during family gatherings. Soon, that simmering resentment boiled over into full-blown accusations. Daniel and their mother claimed fraud and deception against James, arguing he had manipulated circumstances to obtain the inheritance unfairly. The weight of these accusations crushed James as they directly attacked not just his character but also his years of service to the country. With hurtful words thrown around like daggers at family dinners, James struggled to comprehend how his own kin could betray him so deeply. This was not just about property, it felt like a personal attack on his honor and integrity built throughout his military career. As the rift continued to widen, emotions ran high until it spiraled into a lawsuit that would forever change their family dynamics and lead him down this difficult path into court. The accusations against James Whittaker weighed heavily on his heart and mind, casting a long shadow over his life. Daniel's claims that James had committed fraud over their father's inheritance stung deeply, but the allegations of stolen valor struck even harder. As a decorated Army colonel, James had dedicated his life to serving his country, and being labeled a fake veteran felt like an attack on his very identity. In the days leading up to the court case, James found it difficult to shield himself from the barrage of public opinion. Friends and acquaintances began to question his integrity, and whispers followed him wherever he went. The weight of Daniel's accusations turned into a relentless burden. Each day felt like a battle to prove his honor amidst growing doubt. It was as if the trust he had built through years of service was unraveling at the seams due to a familial dispute. As he prepared his defense, James faced not only the legal challenges ahead but also the emotional turmoil of confronting those he once considered allies. The betrayal from Daniel and their mother cut deep, transforming their familial bond into a battlefield where love and loyalty were replaced by mistrust and accusations. Every time he recalled moments spent in the military, the sacrifices he made, the camaraderie he cherished, he felt anger and hurt bubbling within him. But rather than lash out, James chose to focus on gathering evidence to refute the claims against him. He dove into the details of his military records, pulling together documents that would support his reputation as a genuine veteran. Supported by Mark's secretive efforts, he knew the truth was on his side, and he clung to that hope as he faced the daunting challenge of restoring his name. As the weight of the accusations pressed down on him, James Whittaker found himself in a solitary battle, preparing for a defense that felt more like a fight for his very identity. His days were filled with long hours of research and meticulous organization as he combed through military records and legal documents. Each piece of evidence he gathered served not just as a shield against his brother's claims but also as a testament to his years of dedicated service. James often worked late into the night, surrounded by stacks of papers and a single lamp illuminating his workspace. It was in those quiet moments that he felt the isolation most acutely. Friends who once admired him now looked at him with doubt, their whispers of uncertainty echoing in his mind. He had always prided himself on his integrity and honor. Now, those qualities were under siege. With each passing day, he wrestled with feelings of loneliness, knowing that the support he once took for granted had faded into a distant memory. Determined to prove his innocence, James focused intently on the details of his military career, commendations, service records, and testimonials from fellow soldiers who could vouch for his character. He knew that to win this fight, he needed more than just evidence. He needed to reclaim the narrative that had been tainted by falsehoods. Just when he felt the weight of despair creeping in, Mark entered the picture with a flash drive that would change everything. This unexpected lifeline injected new energy into James's preparations. As he reviewed the contents of the drive, emails and documents exposing his family's conspiracy, he realized that he was no longer alone in this fight. With renewed determination, James set out to build a case that would not only clear his name but also shed light on the truth hidden beneath layers of betrayal and deceit. As James immersed himself in the details of his case, a sense of urgency grew within him. He felt the weight of time pressing down, knowing that every moment spent without concrete evidence was a moment his brother Daniel's accusations could loom larger. It was during one of these late-night sessions, surrounded by a sea of papers, that he heard a soft knock on his door. Startled, James looked up to see Mark standing hesitantly in the doorway, a flash drive clutched tightly in his hand. The younger brother's expression was serious, and James immediately sensed that this moment carried significance. "I found something," Mark whispered, glancing around as if making sure they were alone. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him, lowering his voice further. "You need to see this." James's heart raced as he took the flash drive from Mark's trembling hands. "What is it?" he asked, his curiosity piqued but tempered by concern. Mark took a deep breath, clearly grappling with the weight of what he was about to reveal. "Emails between Daniel and Mom. They're planning something big against you," he said, urgency lacing his words. "There are forged documents and evidence of money being taken from veterans' charities, money that they've stolen." James could hardly believe what he was hearing. This was the lifeline he needed, proof that could dismantle Daniel and their mother's conspiracy piece by piece. As Mark explained the contents of the flash drive further, detailing specific emails and messages that laid bare their treachery, hope ignited within James. With newfound determination fueling him, James realized that this evidence could not only vindicate him but also expose the betrayal lurking within his own family. As they worked together to review the files on the flash drive, James felt a surge of gratitude for Mark's bravery and loyalty. This pivotal moment marked a turning point in James's fight for truth and justice, reminding him that even in despair, there could be a way forward through unwavering support and courage. As James sat down with the flash drive that Mark had given him, a mix of hope and apprehension filled the air. He plugged it into his laptop, the screen flickering to life as he prepared to uncover the hidden truths that could turn the tide in his favor. The first file opened to reveal a series of emails exchanged between Daniel and their mother, written in a tone that dripped with malice. Each message laid out their intentions to undermine James, discussing their plan to tarnish his reputation and seize control of the inheritance. Scrolling through the emails, James's heart sank as he read line after line of deceit. They spoke freely about their intentions to accuse him of fraud, with phrases like, "Discredit him at all costs," and "We need to make him pay for this." This was not just sibling rivalry, it was a calculated conspiracy aimed at dismantling his entire life. Next, he turned his attention to another folder labeled Documents. Inside were forged papers, supposedly signed by James, that claimed he had received funds from veterans' charities meant for personal gain. The signatures were clearly fake, but they could easily mislead anyone who didn't know him well. As he analyzed each document, anger surged within him. These were not mere accusations, they were bold lies designed to destroy his honor. Finally, James stumbled upon financial records that detailed stolen funds, money funneled from veterans' charities into accounts controlled by Daniel and their mother. There were transaction histories with dates and amounts that painted a clear picture of theft. Armed with this explosive evidence, James felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew this was his moment to not only defend himself but also to expose the true villains behind the accusations. With every email and document, he felt the weight of injustice lifting, replaced by a determination to reclaim his honor and bring the truth into the light. With the explosive evidence from the flash drive in hand, James Whittaker formulated a strategy that reflected not only his integrity but also his resilience. Unlike his brother Daniel, who sought to gain public sympathy through slander and accusations, James chose a more measured approach. He understood that the courtroom was not just a venue for legal battles. It was also a stage where reputations could be made or broken. Thus, he focused on building a quiet but robust legal case that would speak for itself. James began by meticulously organizing all the evidence he had gathered, ensuring that every document, email, and financial record was presented clearly and logically. He did not want the drama of public opinion to cloud the facts. Instead, he aimed to let the truth shine through in the courtroom. This meant working late into the night, poring over details, and preparing for every possible angle of attack from Daniel's legal team. Furthermore, James opted against staging any media appearances or public statements that might draw unnecessary attention to his case. While Daniel thrived on theatrics and sensationalism, James believed that humility and focus would serve him better. He trusted that those who truly knew him would see through the lies and recognize his commitment to honor and service. As Mark prepared to testify, James felt a sense of solidarity with his brother. Together, they were determined to confront the conspiracy head-on without resorting to personal attacks or public outrage. This partnership symbolized their united front in seeking justice, not just for James's name but for their family's legacy as well. In this quiet determination lay James's strength. He was ready to face his brother in court, armed with truth rather than spectacle, believing that integrity would ultimately prevail over deceit. His journey was not just about clearing his name, it was about restoring dignity to the values he held dear throughout his military career. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Mark took the stand, his heart racing but his resolve unwavering. This was the moment he had prepared for, knowing that his testimony could change everything. He understood the gravity of what he was about to do, not just for his brother James, but for their family's integrity as well. As he looked around the room, Mark saw a mix of skepticism and hope on the faces of those present. The lawyer for James began by laying out the evidence gathered from the flash drive, detailing the emails and documents that exposed Daniel and their mother's conspiracy. With each piece presented, Mark felt a surge of determination to affirm its authenticity. As he began to speak, he addressed the judge directly. "Your Honor, the evidence that has been brought to light is irrefutable. I discovered these emails between my brother Daniel and our mother, plotting to undermine James's reputation." His voice was steady as he recounted specific messages where Daniel expressed a desire to discredit James and how they discussed strategies to frame him for fraud. The weight of his words hung in the air, resonating with the audience. As he revealed details about the forged documents meant to implicate James in stealing funds, gasps rippled through the spectators. Mark's testimony was punctuated by his emotional plea for the truth to be recognized. "Our family may have been torn apart by lies, but it's time for us to confront that betrayal and return to honor," he asserted passionately. By confirming the authenticity of the evidence, and standing up against his own brother's deceit, Mark not only supported James but also reclaimed a piece of their family's dignity. As Mark stepped down from the witness stand, a sense of unity enveloped him and James. Together, they faced a battle not only for justice but for healing within their fractured family. As the courtroom settled after Mark's powerful testimony, the tension was palpable. The judge, having absorbed the overwhelming evidence presented by James and bolstered by Mark's testimony, sat in thoughtful silence, his brow furrowed. It was clear that the implications of the case extended far beyond a personal family feud. They indicated a serious breach of trust and integrity involving veterans' charities. With a steady hand, the judge adjusted his glasses and addressed the court, his voice echoing with authority. "Given the depth of this evidence, including forged documents and substantial claims of financial misconduct, I find it necessary to escalate this matter to the appropriate federal authorities." His decision to call in federal investigators marked a pivotal moment in the case, emphasizing the gravity of the situation. Gasps rippled through the gallery as spectators processed the judge's words. For James, this was not merely a legal maneuver, it was validation of his fight for justice. The allegations against him had transformed into a broader scandal that involved more than just personal accusations. It now encompassed fraud against charitable organizations that were meant to support veterans like himself. As the judge continued, he outlined how federal investigators would be tasked with examining not only the authenticity of the documents but also tracing the stolen funds back to their source. This announcement stirred a sense of unease in Daniel and their mother, who exchanged worried glances, their plans unraveling before them. James felt a wave of relief wash over him, realizing that finally, the truth would have its day in court. He had prepared for this moment, believing that integrity could withstand deceit. Now it seemed justice was on his side. With renewed determination, he awaited what would come next, understanding that this was just the beginning of reclaiming his honor and dignity. As the courtroom proceedings unfolded, the walls seemed to close in on Daniel and their mother as the relentless tide of truth washed over them. The federal investigators, called upon by the judge, began their work, meticulously examining the evidence and uncovering the layers of deceit that had threatened to destroy James's life. For James, witnessing the unraveling of the lies was both exhilarating and emotional. The burden he had carried for so long, of being labeled a fraud and a fake veteran, began to lift. He could feel the weight of doubt and shame slowly being replaced with a profound sense of relief and vindication. As the investigators conducted their inquiries, it became evident that Daniel's conspiracy was not just a petty family feud. It had serious implications, involving stolen funds meant for charities supporting veterans, including the very community James had served. In the days that followed, as evidence mounted against Daniel and their mother, James took a moment to reflect on his journey. He had fought not just for his name but for his dignity and honor as a soldier. Each piece of evidence that surfaced felt like a step closer to reclaiming not only his reputation but also his peace of mind. It was a journey filled with pain, betrayal, and moments of despair, yet he emerged stronger. The emotional culmination came during a private moment in the courthouse when Mark reached out to him. "We did this together," Mark said, his eyes shining with pride. James nodded, feeling an unbreakable bond solidified through their shared struggle. Together, they had faced their family's betrayal head-on and emerged victorious. As the final pieces of evidence fell into place, and the judge prepared to deliver his ruling, James felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Not just for his brother's courage, but for the opportunity to confront the truth and reclaim the honor he had fought so hard to protect. In that moment, he realized that dignity isn't merely about being vindicated, it's about standing firm against adversity and rising above it with integrity intact. As the dust settled in the courtroom, James Whittaker found himself at a pivotal crossroads, having faced the deepest betrayals from his own family and emerged victorious. The overwhelming evidence that had come to light not only vindicated him but also shattered the falsehoods that had haunted him for so long. In this moment of triumph, he felt an exhilarating rush of restored peace wash over him, replacing the heavy burden of doubt with a newfound sense of clarity. The journey through betrayal had been arduous, yet it reaffirmed the importance of family loyalty and standing up against lies. James recognized how crucial it was to confront deceit head-on, not just for himself but for future generations. Their family's legacy would no longer be marred by scandal. Instead, it could be restored through honesty and courage. With the support of his younger brother Mark, who had stood steadfastly beside him throughout the ordeal, James realized that true strength lies in unity. Together, they had faced the storm and emerged as allies in their fight for justice, an unbreakable bond forged in adversity. As the legal proceedings concluded and life began to normalize, James took a moment to reflect on what this experience taught him. He understood that reclaiming his honor wasn't merely about winning a case. It was about standing firm in one's convictions and ensuring that truth prevails against falsehoods. The four walls of the courtroom that once felt so confining now represented a sanctuary where justice had taken root. James knew that while scars from this battle would linger, they would serve as reminders of resilience, integrity, and the unwavering commitment to protect what is right. With his dignity intact and peace restored, James was ready to embrace a new chapter, a chapter defined by loyalty to his family and an unyielding fight for truth in every aspect of life going forward.